won't none! You don't want none!
What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? It is your favorite North Carolinian, Russ the Tar Heel. And in this huddle, baby, we're going to talk about round 2 of the annual Big Brother, that's North Carolina, / Little Brother, that's NC State, basketball game. The unranked, what do you know, NC State Wolfpack visit the slaughterhouse known as the Dean Dome to take on the 9th-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels on March 2nd in Chapel Hill, 4 p.m. on ESPN. Now, as you can see in this preview, we're going to poke a little bit of fun. We're going to have a little fun with the rivalry because that's what makes the rivalry great. So before you get all in your feelings, Wolfsack Nation, okay, put on your big boy pants, be a big boy, and by all means, you are more than welcome to give it back down in the comments section. That's what makes the rivalry great. At the end of the day, bro, it's just a game, right? We're fans. We enjoy the rivalry. We try to have fun with the rivalry, but it's just a game, bro, okay? And we truly are just one big dysfunctional family. We just happen to be big bro that's constantly giving you guys noogies and your little bro who's constantly having to take them. Not sorry. So anyway, before we get into the intricate details of this basketball game, let's take a look at the updated ACC standings and the schedule coming up. And obviously at the top, you got number 9 North Carolina at 14-3. Number 10 Duke is behind them at 13-4. They're one game back in North Carolina. And then you have the Hoos at 12-6. They're 2.5 games behind the Hills. Clemson and Wake are 10-7, 4 games back. Syracuse is 10-8. Pitt, FSU, and the Wolfsack are at 9-8. Virginia Tech is at 7-10. BC and Notre Dame are at 6-11. Miami is at 6-12. Georgia Tech is at 5-12. And Louisville is holding down the rear at 3-14. Now, the upcoming ACC schedule consists of, and these are all Saturday's games, right? Florida State at Georgia Tech, NC State at North Carolina, obviously, Wake Forest at Virginia Tech, Virginia at Duke. That's the second and third teams in the ACC standings right now, so that could have huge implications on what Carolina needs to do for the rest of the regular season in order to secure that 1 seed. Then you have Pitt at Boston College, Clemson at Notre Dame, and Syracuse at Louisville, last but not least. So there are some fairly important games with the conference, within the conference, if you will, this week, especially that matchup between the Hoos and the Dukies. So, without further ado, let's look at the Hills and Wolfsack matchup. Now, North Carolina and NC State met earlier in the year on January 10th, where the Hills beat the Wolfpack 67-54 in Raleigh behind R.J. Davis's 16 points and Harrison Ingram adding 9 and 19 boards himself. Don't forget, EC had a pretty good game with 11 points and 6 assists, and he lived in that Wolfpack paint, bro. Got to the middle of the floor quite often, and we're probably going to need him to do the same thing to be successful once again. State star player DJ Horn went 2 for 16 from the field and over 3 from 3 to contribute only 6 points. DJ Burns, he started fast, but he faded in the second half, contributing 11 points along with Morsel getting a couple of pointless baskets at the end of the game to kind of lead all of State scores. He scored 12 total, and I think half of those were against the Biscuit Boys at the end of the game, where he's just, taking the smaller guy to the bucket and making the score look a little bit better, if you will. Now, in that game, UNC only shot 38.7% from the floor and 33.3% from 3, but that paled in comparison to NC State shooting 27.3% from the field and only 10% from behind the arc. Now, I remember before the game, what's kind of funny is I still remember all the NC State fans on the message boards and everything. We're going to beat you guys. We're starting to turn the tide in Raleigh. Raleigh's not going to be a place where Carolina is just going to come in and win, da-da-da-da-da. I mean, they beat us one time in Raleigh last year, and all of a sudden, bro, you would have thought that all of a sudden they were like Carolina and we were little bro like NC State. Just all this, talk of how they're about to start dominating in Raleigh, if you will. And then the horn sounded, and you watched Wolfie walk off the stinking floor, and his head's hung low because he realized that was just a pipe dream. He realized that Daddy still lives 15 miles away in Chapel Hill, and he only comes to see him one time a year in Raleigh, and it's to give him a whooping, right? And then, as Wolfie just starts to shed those tears, man, I grabbed a cup because I wanted to catch some of the most priceless resources in all of mankind, and that's Wolfpack tears, bro. That's right. Right here in this cup, baby. Wolfpack tears. And I must say, man, that goes down sweet, dude. So anyway, all jokes aside, bro, except for the NC State basketball program, let's get into the intricate details of this lopsided rivalry, if you will. Now, the North Carolina Tar Heels hold a resounding 165-80 record against the NC State Wolfpack, according to Wikipedia. Just listen to these win-loss numbers by decade. And Wolfie started off strong, I must confess. Kind of. 1910s, State was 2-0 in that decade. But then listen to this. 1920s, UNC 17-3. 1930s, UNC 16-6. 1940s, UNC 13-10. 1950s, UNC 18-10. 1960s, UNC 18-4. 1970s, UNC 17-13. 1980s, 18-7 North Carolina. 1990s, 15-7 North Carolina. 2000s, 16-5 North Carolina. 2010s, 18-3 North Carolinas. And thus far, in the 2020s, 6-2 North Carolina. That's over 100 years of being someone's daddy. There's no other way to stinking put it. Now, in the 23-24 season thus far, NC State is averaging 76.2 points per game and giving up 72.1 points per game. They are 2-3 in their last 5 with wins versus BC and at Clemson. They've also lost at Wake Forest, Syracuse, against the Qs, and they've also lost at Florida State. North Carolina, on the other hand, is averaging 81.5 points per game and giving up 70.4 points per game. The Heels are 4-1 in their last 5 with wins both at Miami and Miami at home, Virginia Tech, and at Virginia with that lone loss at Syracuse. Now, the NC State Wolfpack are led by head coach Kevin Keatts, who is 130-90 all-time as the Wolfies head coach, which is good for a .591 win percentage. And I would be absolutely lying to you if I thought that Coach Keatts is going to be there much longer, especially if State misses the tournament again. I just don't know where they go after Kevin Keatts. It's a terribly tough job to take with Carolina and Duke next door. It just is. So I don't know where they go after Kevin Keatts because it's going to be a bunch of the same thing. You're going to be, third or fourth fiddle every year in North Carolina and basketball. Just is what it is, man. Now, State's leading scorer is 6'1", 175-pound senior guard DJ Horn, who's averaging 17.5 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, and 2.3 assists. He's shooting 43.8% from the floor and 42.9% from three. DJ had 6 points, 4 assists, and 9 boards in their first matchup. Remember, he did not play very well. Then there's 6'4", 195-pound junior guard Jaden Taylor, who's averaging 11.8 points per game, 3.8 rebounds, and 1.4 assists. He's shooting 39.5% from the floor and 32.8% from three. Taylor had 6 points, 0 assists, and 5 boards in matchup 1. Then there's 6'9", 375-pound. Wait. It says he's 275. Thought he was 375. My bad. 275-pound senior forward DJ Burns Jr., who's averaging 11.8 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 2.6 assists. He's shooting 50.2% from the floor. And my man DJ had 11 points, 1 assist, and 2 boards in the first matchup. Then there's 6'3", 200-pound senior guard Casey Morsell, who's averaging 11.6 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, and 1.9 assists. He's shooting 41.9% from the floor and 29.4% from 3. He had 12 and 7 in the first game. And then last but not least, there's 6'10", 240-pound junior forward Ben Middlebrooks, who's averaging 5.6 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, and 0.4 assists. He's shooting 51% from the field and had 2, 2, and 2 against the Heels in their first matchup. Now, that's the 5 leading scorers for State, but you'll also see that forward Muhammad Diarra, guard Dennis Parker Jr., and guard Michael O'Connell as the main Wolfies off the bench. And now that we've taken a look at North Carolina's menu, let's have a look at the top team in the Atlantic Coast Conference. The North Carolina Tar Heels are led by head coach Hubert Davis, who has a 71-29 record at UNC, good for a 710 win percentage in his first 100 games as the head ball coach at Carolina. I personally think that Coach Davis has made a tremendous case for ACC Coach of the Year. Now, the Heels' leading scorer is none other than 6 foot, 180-pound senior guard R.J. Davis, who was averaging 21.7 points per game, which is tied for 6th in the country, 3.7 boards, and 3.4 assists. He's shooting 43.1% from the floor and 41.1% from 3. My man had 16 points, 4 boards, and 1 assist in the first matchup. And obviously, RJ is obviously coming off of that Dean Dome record of 42 against Miami and has all but locked up the Atlantic Coast Conference Player of the Year. The question is, can he make a legitimate case for National Player of the Year? I think he makes a great case, and that's not just me being stinking biased. Then there's 6'11", 240-pound senior forward Armando Bacot, who's averaging 14.1 points per game, 10.5 rebounds, which is good for 10th in the country, and 1.6 assists. He's shooting 55.9% from the floor and had 9 and 5 with 1 assist against Wolfie in the first matchup. Then there's 6'7", 235-pound junior forward Harrison Ingram, who's averaging 12.2 points per game, 9.2 rebounds, tied for 41st in the country, and 2.2 assists. He's shooting 43.3% from the floor and 39.5% from 3. Harrison had 9 points, 19 rebounds, and 1 assist in their first matchup. Then there's 6'5", 195-pound senior guard Cormac Ryan, who was averaging 10.9 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, and 1.4 assists. He's shooting 36.4% from the floor, 32.4% from behind the arc. He had 8 points, 3 boards in their first matchup. And last but not least is 6'1", 180-pound freshman point guard Elliot Cadeau, who's averaging 7.6 points per game, 1.8 boards, and 4.1 assists. He's shooting 42.6% from the field, but only 19.4% from 3. But remember, Cadeau had 11 points and 6 assists in Raleigh. It's a pretty big game for him. Now, the Heels will usually go with guards Seth Trimble, forward Jalen Withers, and forward Jalen Washington off the bench. Every once in a while, you'll see Paxson Wojcik. So we've taken a look at the teams. Let's get into Russ's 3 keys to victory. Key number 1, contain the DJs. DJ Horn is the engine that runs this NC State Wolfpack team. DJ Burns should be playing offensive line for NC State. But seriously, Carolina did a tremendous job of containing Horn in the first game, but he also missed a few shots that he's accustomed to knocking down, if we're going to be honest with one another. Horn is the one guy that can keep this game interesting. Burns does not have the stamina to be effective for an entire ball game. He'll probably start off hot. That's what he does. He's fresh. His legs are fresh. But when you get that guy running up and down the stinking floor, man, hey, that's a lot of stinking weight to be carrying around up and down, up and down. He just doesn't have the stamina to go head-to-head with Armando for 30, 40 minutes. And you saw that in that game in Raleigh as he faded. You keep Horn in check, you weather the short burst from Burns, and you effectively cut off the head of the wolf, and you watch him bleed out. I know, kind of graphic, but a figurative and active portrayal of what needs to transpire. Key number 2. Cadeau showed flashes of why he was so highly regarded coming out of high school, as he consistently got to the middle of the floor and was either able to go straight to the bucket and finish or find wide open guys on the perimeter as the Wolfies attempted to help down. If Cadeau can continue to be a nightmare getting into the lane, it'll create open shots against a State defense that can sometimes be not necessarily great, but they can be kind of pesky. EC is too quick against this team to not be getting inside all night. So I want to see EC continue to dribble, drive, penetrate, get to the middle, and find the open man on the kickouts or down low, giving Armando some easy buckets, if you will. Key number 3, make good post-entry passes, man. Coach Davis was noticeably displeased with Carolina's post entries, as far too many times they were leading the big man right into the teeth of the defense with lob passes that are extremely difficult to catch and finish with. The Tar Heels had at least 5 wasted possessions. More than that, but at least 5 wasted possessions with poor interior passing. Carolina needs to be deliberate when they're passing to the big guys down on the block, man. Minimize empty possessions, and you minimize State's opportunity to hang around in this ball game. And that will lead us to Russ's score prediction. The ESPN matchup indicator gives the North Carolina Tar Heels an 89.7% chance of beating NC State in Chapel Hill. That's about as close to a sure thing as you can ask for. The Heels are 12-1 at the Dome this year. State, they are 4-5 in true road games from what I could tell. The Heels have a preseason All-American in Armando Bacot. In the future, Atlantic Coast Conference Player of the Year and possibly National Player of the Year, R.J. Davis on the same side of the floor. I think State puts up a good fight. It's a rivalry game. They play us hard for the first stinking 30 minutes, just like they did in Raleigh, but they ultimately succumb to the Tar Heels' talent. The Heels will pull away in the last 10 minutes to beat the Wolfpack 83-70. North Carolina over the Wolfpack 83-70. Horn plays better. He does get in double figures, but it doesn't get the help from the surrounding cast to really stand a chance. Burns starts tough and fades as the game progresses due to conditioning. RJ comes back down to earth with 20. How crazy is that when you say somebody comes back down to earth by scoring 20? And State can't keep EC in front of them, further inking the Tar Heels' name on the father portion of NC State's birth certificate. So tell me what you think about this game down in the comment section, Tar Heel and Wolfsack Nation. Is Russ onto something, or am I sitting at the end of the bench with my bifocals on, trying to find out what the heck an NC State basketball program is? Like, share, subscribe to the channel, and shout out to my Huddle hooligans that help me keep the lights on in this thing. Don't forget, live stream March 2nd at 3:50 p.m. So make sure you come hang with your boy as the Heels defend the Dome against the Wolfies. You know that your boy's looking forward to this one, Tar Heel Nation. I love y'all, and I'll see you on Saturday, baby.